So my name is Jeremy Profit. I'm the staff site reliability engineer at lendingtree.com. We're a multi-billion-dollar .com. This talk today is about our move from ECS to Kubernetes under Rancher 2, which kind of abstracts away a lot of the heavy lifting in installing Kubernetes. As we start looking at the marketplace, we start seeing hardware as a service become more of a commodity. And as that continues to be more of a commodity, it allows us to be able to leverage both the ability to move our cloud to somewhere else, but also leverage that ability to have our providers increase things like customer service and engagement from their tech teams to make sure we can do whatever we need to do. It's not always about the price. That threat can be of great value as well. A little bit about me. I'm the first SRE at LendingTree. I built out the reliability platform. Before I started doing that, our monitoring was based on customer service calls and a CPO and a couple product guys yelling at us to say things are down. In the last 2.5 years, we've completely reversed reliability to the reliability and put us in a position where our biggest problems right now are our vendors. So we're up more than our vendors are, and that's kind of a really great place to be. And that's what's one of the things that's moving us to look at a multi-cloud solution. I run a small team of SREs alongside the DevOps people. We're an extremely integrated team. DevOps and us are both cross-trained. We participate in the DevOps on-call rotation, and they help us out on SRE matters. And I think for LendingTree, that provides a great base for not only ensuring we don't burn out our DevOps staff, but so that the SREs actually understand what's going into development, so that when they're monitoring it, they understand that stack from deployment all the way out to the customer. I think here it is. I had to turn the little button on. What does LendingTree do? LendingTree is a search engine for money. We pair you up with auto lenders, personal loan lenders, mortgage lenders. Very simple experience, but very powerful. A little bit about our tech stack. We are still working with a lot of IIS-based C# applications. We have some old Angular out in production as well. We've recently turned off our BizTalk 2009 servers, which is, it's a tremendous sigh of relief when you get to turn off some of the oldest stacks in your architecture. We're now looking at it more of a .NET Core-based Dockerized system. WordPress with Node integrated forms. Node-RED for configuration of forms. ECS and Kubernetes run our Docker clusters, and we're doing most of our CI/CD with GitLab and a little bit of Octopus. We are not simply a Sumo Logic shop. We do use New Relic, and we do use Zabbix alongside of that. I think ensuring that you have a multi-monitoring solution across your platform to provide different insights into your applications, provide the best defense, especially if one provider goes down, or whether you have people that are questioning that provider's data truth, then you can look at other providers and also say, hey, look, it's not Sumo Logic, it is your application, and we know that because we've looked in New Relic and we've looked at CloudWatch, so we can see. Before Sumo, kind of talked about this, we were in a bad place, and the honest truth is we used to make a whole lot less money. Kubernetes, what everyone's here to talk about. How many people here have run Kubernetes? It's a lot of people. How many people have run it under Rancher? How many people rolled their own cubes? Well done. Not something I'm willing to do myself. Kubernetes, for those who don't know, was created by Google. So it's fairly well production tested and production ready. It's a modular compute runtime environment, which means it can run more than just Docker instances, which is kind of interesting. You can actually run like VM machines under it. You can run a whole different other types of orchestrations, not just Docker. So it has that abstractability for when you 5 years from now, when we start looking at Docker being depreciated for something new, Kubernetes can still control it. Workload management is really amazing inside of Kubernetes. We can run it internal to the network, so we can remove that load balancer, the latency from machine to machine. And you can have services actually calling each other on the same machine, which reduces a lot of latency, provides some protection as far as security. But the biggest advantage is still that you can now leverage that across multiple hardware as a service providers to, make sure you're getting the most for your value, right? And sometimes for things that don't have to be mission critical, you can run them on things like spot instances where you can bring those loads up in the middle of the night, work on a process for a little while, and then when the spot instance goes away, you've got stored state, and then you can just bring that spot instance up again whenever it gets cheap and continue working that workload, but you can do it at a much reduced cost. So for larger analytics jobs, stuff like that, things that you just need to run once at night, it doesn't matter if it runs between 10 and 3 in the morning. Those are things that really we can take a lot of advantage of. How many people here have heard of Rancher? So Rancher 1 and Rancher 2 are kind of like night and day difference. Rancher 2's got a lot of analytical capability. It's got their own dashboard that's providing a lot of information. It is still like a V1 product, and so it doesn't have a lot of the feature sets we would like to see. Sumo coming in with their Kubernetes product, again, still a V1 product, but now all of a sudden I can couple in all of my Opsgenie alerts. I can couple in all of the aggregation and alerting capabilities. So I can now take that and apply that to a workload and come out much farther ahead. Rancher's really easy to bring up. If no one's brought up a Rancher cluster, I'm going to tell you it took me, I think, 30 minutes to bring up my first one, right? And so when you're bringing up a Rancher cluster, you'll see at the bottom a little bit of Linux here. There's a single command that you run on an instance, and it automatically joins with the cluster, right? It manages your certs. You don't have to worry about that. It'll replace the certs across the entire cluster if you want it to with a couple of clicks of a button. Anyone had their certs expire in a Kubernetes cluster? We did in our production environment. We knew about it though. We were able to change it out before it happened. This gives us a lot of capabilities. So as long as I have my networking piece set up, I can actually run Docker workers in any instance of compute across any platform. And it just joins and it starts working, right? When we talk about doing that kind of work across multiple vendors, we start looking at needing to be able to monitor what that looks like. Obviously, Sumo does that for us, but having that allows us to abstract away, CloudWatch logs and Perfmon logs and, the logging systems and all the providers to a single pane of glass. We don't have to worry about writing alerts We're monitoring machines on different platforms, right? And we can bring this all to a centralized system. I always get this question, especially around the shop, especially when it's time to renew our contract. Why don't we use Elastic? The real truth is one bad commit, one long-running query that we don't catch, one bad index, and I can lose $250,000 in an afternoon. Downtime in lending tree in our prime is about $6,000 a minute. So, you know, we're playing with real money here. And it's just, I don't think worth it to risk for our revenue to put anything else in place that we have to manage that we could screw up. I mean, that's the honest truth. I think Frank did a great job going through the dashboards this morning. Don't know if we need to review them, but I think one of the best things I love about it is a year ago, you could have told me that dashboards were amazing, and I would have told you, I love my alerts, go away. Since then, I'll tell you that I've gotten so used to dashboards that a simple glance at a dashboard, and I can tell you whether we're operating as normal or not. I don't have to look at the numbers. I don't have to do anything but glance up, because I know in my mind what that dashboard looks like, and I know when that dashboard is wrong, right? So you're walking by, same dashboard in a number of different places in the building. You walk by and you look at it, and then you just know you got to get to your desk, you know? We have a lot of our staff developers who are developing their own dashboards, putting them up, and that for them has provided them amazing capabilities. It is not unlike us to call TransUnion and say, you guys are 30% more, you guys are taking 30% more time to process our requests. What's going on? It annoys them, right? Because they're like, leave us alone. It's 30% increase, right? 15 minutes later, what happens? The outage. Well, hopefully we've woken them up so our outage doesn't take as long to fix, but it's kind of what happens, right? We also do things like sending alerts to some of our vendors that tend to be not so reliable. For a while there, I was opening tickets one every minute with a vendor who I was particularly not too happy with, using Sumo alerts. Kind of wake them up a little bit, explain we know what's going on in your environment and you don't. So I think it's really, you know, for us, it's given us a lot of power to do some really awesome things. Some cool tricks that we've learned over the last couple of years. We monitor our source categories. So we know if source categories are being dropped, if logging isn't happening, if new machines have been added. We integrated our paging system. We use OpsGenie. And we manage automated remediation in OpsGenie and not in Sumo. It's really not the place for it, although you can run scripts on servers with Sumo, which is kind of something a lot of people don't know. I'm a particularly big fan of a median over an average. And every time I get a chance to talk to somebody in product at Sumo, I say, why don't we have a median? And they ask me why, and I say, because Christmas Day. If my last 4 weeks of information includes Christmas Day, then that average is going to be very, very off, right? Number of hits on your website, traffic, the whole bit, it's going to be off. But if I look at a median, I take out that one outlier, and I get true truth in my data. Dashboards, kind of talked about this. One of the other tricks we use is, for those, does anyone know that you can whitelist a dashboard to be seen without logging in using a static IP address? Everyone knows that? It's like the best thing ever, right? We have Chrome bits, now we're moving to Raspberry Pis with a little kiosk display on them, right? And you turn them on, they go to a URL, bring up a dashboard, we're done. They have a problem, unplug them, plug them back in, works like a champ. Simple, easy, done. Another really cool thing we've done on dashboards is we've started putting dashboard links inside of the comment section or the notes section in alerts, directing people outside of technology or even inside of technology that this is the alert. Oh, hey, I can't put all the information I want you to see in this alert, but here's a dashboard. Go to this dashboard and you can see what's happening, right? We're looking at doing automated builds to produce simple websites that have links to all of our dashboards. Still working through how we want to do that as far as organization goes. But most of us have a long list of bookmarked dashboards that, in case of an incident, we can go ahead and just, roll through those real quickly to get where we need to go. All of our dev staff is instructed after deployments to watch their dashboards. That's been a big, big success for us. It also allows us to be able to say, after deployment goes out, that goes south, we look at Sumo and we say, well, dude, it was on your dashboard. You didn't see it? Right? So you have a lot of power to be able to ask the developer to take better responsibility. Is that the politically correct way to say it? We always ask when there's an error, we always ask first if it's revenue impacting, right? And this is, I think, where SRE kind of falls down, especially if you follow the Google model, because we talk about uptime, but we don't talk about revenue. Revenue on a Tuesday afternoon at LendingTree, 2 o'clock, $6,000 a minute. 3 a.m. in the morning on a Sunday, $200 a minute. Sometimes it's okay to grab a cup of coffee before you remediate the problem. Sometimes you don't even page the CTO before you jump on it, right? And that's just the way of technology and revenue. We don't act quickly when it's not revenue impacting, honestly. Because if it's just the search thing on the website, you might just throw back at dev. And that's fine. But you should understand the revenue impact of what your alerting is doing. What's next for LendingTree and our Sumo logic? We're starting to look at what we want to do for automated remediation and OpsGenie. And everyone's like, well, we got automated remediation. Okay, cool. We didn't even have alerting 2.5 years ago, so we're kind of catching up a little bit. We're looking to leverage the content API to allow us to share Sumo queries and alerts throughout our teams. So basically look at, hey, I wrote something, Neil wrote something, Ashley wrote something, and I want to see all those I want to be able to look at and modify those alerts. Well, if I don't have permissions to them, I can go to admin mode, I can force it, but it doesn't show up in the search, right? So being able to automatically share those assets and have an API just go in once a day and reshare everything to the entire team, to us we think will add tremendous value. Will it? I'm not sure yet. And the last thing is we're starting to look at building 2 and 3 tier alerts. What I mean by that is if I have a problem going on here in our system, I know it's going to show up here, 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 and here. So I look at these alerts and I bring in the results of this one so that I don't get 7 pages. I get 1 page here and then the rest of them don't fire. So we're not quite sure how we want to do that, especially given our ability to leverage OpsGenie. But it's something that especially on dashboards, I'll get my CTO going, why do our offers look down? Why does, our offer click to banner click ratio look down? And I point at the transmits to lenders and I say, because one of our major lenders is down and they've failed 1,000 transmits in the last 40 minutes, right? So that is causing the rest of the dashboard to look off. And so that's something you need to remember when you're looking at the dashboards too, but something that we were trying to build into our monitoring system as well. Kind of went a little bit of everywhere around here today. Questions?
Just raise your hands.
Anybody?
And bring the mic to you guys.
No? Sumo, questions?
So, I have a question. The title says moving from ECS to Kubernetes. What all taken you to move from ECS to Kubernetes? Why you moved on? Only vendor locking or anything else?
So the reason why, there's a lot of reasons. So definitely looking at a multi-cloud architecture for reliability and being able to control costs is part of it. I think a lot of the bigger parts is Kubernetes has a lot more capabilities than ECS for deployments. Your ability to hook into things like Chef for persistent storage, or be able to change your back-end networking, software-based network as a be able to change those providers to what you need. We've had some issues with trying to get certain tasking-based, like time task-based operations to work properly. And then we've also seen some issues with WordPress and ECS, just in general. And oddly enough, we roll it in Kubernetes and it just works. We think part of that is the persistent storage part. So obviously what we're doing for persistent storage in ECS, which is obviously kind of a nightmare, is that persistent storage in ECS, we use an EFS volume attached to every single instance inside of the ECS cluster, and then each Docker instance will go ahead and map in a directory off of that, and so that has certain implications as far as security. Now, all applications could possibly, if I update my Docker, my Docker image could view files outside of that that they're allowed to. So that's been a security concern we've worried about. And then secret management in ECS is just a nightmare. I mean, it's literally JSON attached to the ECS instance, and that's okay, but that means that none of our developers can even look at the ECS task definitions. We've had to actually build a tool to let them look at it, because if they can look at the task definitions, they can look at the secrets too. And so secrets management is a big part of, another big part of the move, so yeah. Other questions?
Okay, so I've got to ask, so does Rancher add another layer of security nightmares on it? I understand the reason why you're using it.
I can't.
So for Rancher 2, does that actually add another layer of security issues to it? And I understand why you're using it, because you can kind of use it from dev all the way through to production, but you're essentially adding another layer to the stack, if that makes sense.
Yes and no. Depends on the way you want to look at security in Rancher. Because Rancher is so lightweight, you could actually orchestrate separate clusters for separate tasking. And this cluster, it may be okay that social security numbers are available throughout any of the operations here. And then we can take that and we can isolate it, and then, so I don't know how familiar you are with Fargate. Fargate takes an ECS instance and it detaches the network interface, and then it rolls another Docker instance or ECS container, and then it attaches a network interface. Your network interface never changes. And you can do the same thing with Kubernetes in that what it looks like on the outside retains the same definition, while you can orchestrate things differently on the inside, meaning you can apply your security to the outside of it while leaving the inside kind of open and free. So the answer I would give you is everything adds another layer of security to it, but I think that this does a better job of allowing us to operate clusters independently and workloads independently, whereas ECS, you're really kind of bolted down to what Amazon says is best practices, not what could be best practices across the industry. Other questions? Well, guys, I'm hard to miss. Glad to have you guys here. If you guys have any questions, come, bump into me on the floor. I'm really privileged to have all of you come and listen to me today. If you have any questions, just come find me.
Jeremy, that was really great.